Alicia Hughes and her husband Brian were living the American dream. Brian was a former member of the U.S. Air Force. Alicia was a beloved mother of two and one of the most respected teachers in her hometown of Jackson, Mississippi.
Alicia is a wonderful mom. She loves her kids. She's an outgoing, sweet person, very smart and intelligent.
She was like the high school beauty queen. She goes off to live a life with two daughters and is teaching school.
But on June 3rd, 2004, a flurry of gunfire put a sudden and horrific end to Alicia Hughes' storybook life.
Please tell me, please tell me, please tell me. Ma'am? Somebody shot my husband.
He was shot 7 times, but the shot that actually killed him was the one to the chest.
You know, she's gotten her piece of the American pie, and all of a sudden, you know, her husband's dead.
But the search for an unknown intruder leads instead to the couple's bedroom.
A gun holster was found underneath the victim's bed, empty. No gun, just a holster.
A shocking arrest and a surprising legal controversy would leave everyone who followed the case wondering, would justice be served, or would a cold-blooded killer get away with the perfect crime? Born in 1971, Alicia Monique Johnson was raised by a single mom in the gritty capital city of Jackson, Mississippi. As a child, Alicia preferred the company of the characters in her children's books to that of her peers.
She liked to read books, lock up in the room. She was a real quiet child.
By junior high, Alicia had distinguished herself as one of her class's top students. And by high school, she had the charm and good looks to go along with the brains.
Alicia was very friendly, very welcoming. Just a personality, just a warm personality that would draw you in.
And no one at Lanier High was more drawn to Alicia than Brian Hughes.
He was walking down the hallway, and it was the end of the day, and I was looking out the door, just, you know, waiting for the bell to ring. And he walked by, and then he kind of doubled back, and he started smiling at me, and he came into the classroom, and he sat down next to my desk, and we started talking.
During their senior year, Brian and Alicia were inseparable.
He was real spontaneous. He was just a fun person to be around. He wanted people to laugh and have fun when they were in his presence, and you felt that.
After graduation, Brian and Alicia enrolled at Jackson State University. Alicia immediately set her sights on becoming a teacher, and she wanted Brian with her every step of the way.
I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I knew that I wanted to be a wife, and I knew that I wanted to be a mother. And, you know, beyond that, I never really had any, you know, greater expectations.
But after just one semester, Brian left college to join the Air Force. He and Alicia decided it was time to see other people.
They code a while and they break up. They code a while and they break up. And they kept going back together.
Although Alicia's romantic life had hit an unexpected roadblock, her goal of becoming a teacher was right on track. She got a bachelor's degree in education from Jackson State and followed that up with a master's from Mississippi College. She then landed a teaching position at a school on the outskirts of Jackson. It was her dream job.
Teaching is a hard job. You have to love it to want to do it. And seeing the little light bulb that goes off when they've, you know, got a concept, and that makes me feel like I've accomplished something.
Shortly after Alicia began teaching, Brian wrapped up his stint in the Air Force and took a job in Jackson as a machinist. Within a matter of weeks, Alicia and Brian's 8-year on-again, off-again romance was back on. On September 1st, 1999, Alicia gave birth to a daughter. 8 months later, in May of 2000, the former high school sweethearts tied the knot.
I got married at his parents' house outside, and had kind of a garden wedding. It was beautiful.
Married life seemed to suit Alicia and Brian. They moved into a new house, and before long had another daughter. For Alicia, what started as a high school romance had become a storybook life.
We would go to family outings and events, you know, with my family and his family, you know, barbecues and things like that.
But Alicia's fairy tale family life was about to come to an abrupt and decidedly unhappy ending. On June 3rd, 2004, after a night out with his brother, Brian arrived home around 11 o'clock, locked the door, and set the alarm. He was talking to someone on the phone as he sat down in the living room. Moments later, the alarm on the Hughes front door was activated, triggering a call to the house from an ADT security dispatcher. Alicia Hughes answered. Fighting back tears, she told the dispatcher a harrowing story.
Good evening. Please tell me, please tell me, please tell me. Ma'am? Somebody tell my husband, he's bleeding, please, somebody. Okay, ma'am, I'm going to call the police right back. Please, hurry. Okay.
On June 3, 2004, at 11:26 p.m., investigators from the Jackson, Mississippi Police Department arrived at the suburban home of Brian and Alicia Hughes. Alerted by a security company after the alarm on the couple's front door had been triggered, the police found Brian Hughes in a puddle of blood in the den.
As you go inside the residence, right to the left of the foyer is the den. That's where the victim, Brian Hughes' body actually was at. There was a significant amount of blood.
EMTs tried to resuscitate Brian, but it was no use. They pronounced him dead on the scene, a victim of multiple gunshot wounds.
But he was shot in the chest area, the leg, and the groin. He had thrown his hands up in a defensive mode like, please, please don't shoot me. So he was shot in the hands, but the shot that actually killed him was the one to the chest.
Investigators attempted to secure the crime scene, but by midnight, several members of Brian and Alicia's family, along with dozens of patrolmen and even a few curious neighbors, had made their way to the house.
We couldn't get to the house because there were so many police cars. They would not have seen until Bryant's mother told him that I was Alicia's mother.
Between the cops, the EMTs, and the grieving friends and family, the scene was bordering on chaos. But fortunately, Alicia's young daughters managed to sleep through all of it.
The small children never woke up. They stayed in bed asleep.
To investigators, Brian Hughes appeared to be the victim of an attempted robbery gone awry. But when they tried to get a formal statement from Alicia to confirm exactly what had transpired, she was too distraught to talk. So that night, investigators granted Alicia permission to leave the house. She washed up, gathered her sleeping daughters along with an overnight bag, and headed to her mother's house. But not long after she left, the police began to suspect that something wasn't adding up. For starters, most of the shell casings from the murder weapon were found outside the Hughes front door, but all the blood evidence was inside the house.
There was no blood at the front door or in the foyer. All the blood was in the den where the body was.
Brian Hughes defied the laws of Newton's gravity and managed to not bleed a drop from where he was supposedly in the foyer and to where his body was found in the living room.
The physical evidence suggested to investigators that Brian had been shot and killed not by an intruder, but by someone inside the Hughes home. But the police had no real reason to suspect Alicia Hughes until they looked under her bed.
A gun holster was found underneath the victim's bed. Empty. No gun, just a holster.
The holster was made to carry a .45 caliber pistol, the same type of weapon used to kill Brian Hughes.
She was allowed to leave the home that night, and she took an overnight bag with her. No one searched it. Certainly she could have either taken the gun with her that night or hid it in the house that night and came and got it at a later date.
The police brought Alicia in the next morning for questioning. She claimed she was in bed asleep when her husband was shot. Police then tested her hands for gunshot residue, explaining that if the results of the GSR test came clean, it would officially rule her out as a suspect. On February 3, 2005, the results from Alicia's GSR test came back.
The state crime lab processed the gunshot residue, and they found gunpowder on her hand, which I believe the left hand.
But the results weren't exactly overwhelming. The GSR test revealed just a single particle of gunpowder on the back of Alicia's hand. It was enough for investigators.
Either you fired a gun, held a gun, or was close to when a gun was fired. Those are the only three reasons it would be on the back of your hand.
On March 8, 2005, Alicia Hughes was arrested and charged with the murder of her husband. On January 3, 2007, the state versus Alicia Hughes for the first-degree murder of her husband got underway. Even before it began, the trial was marked by controversy.
The defense had complained that the prosecution was striking mostly blacks from that jury, especially black females from that jury. And when it ended up, there was only, I believe, 2 black females on the first jury.
The prosecution opened the proceedings by telling the jury that Elisa Hughes killed her husband because she had learned he was having an affair.
Talking to people that knew Brian, certain people will make the comment that he was a cheater. He cheated on his wife.
To prove their point, they called Robbie Rayford to the stand. She not only admitted to having an affair with Brian, she also claimed she was on the phone with him just before his death, and that he wasn't alone.
Robbie Rayford took the stand and said, I was on the phone with Brian just a few moments before the shots happened, and I asked him, is your wife standing in front of you? And he said yes, and he had to go.
She knew more than likely that Brian was with the mistress, and I think it just absolutely infuriated her. And I think that's the night that she decided that she was going to get rid of him.
Then the prosecution went over the evidence established during the investigation, particularly the holster found under the bed and the gunshot residue found on Alicia's hand the day after the murder.
The gunpowder was on the back of her left hand, and there was no other way she could have got it on the back of her left hand. That's where you'd expect to find it when someone's fired a gun.
But the defense argued that the gunshot residue pointed not to Alicia's guilt, but to her innocence.
Understand, the evidence was that the person who killed Brian shot a .45 caliber pistol 8 times. There would have been GSR all over this person.
The defense said that Alicia could have easily gotten a small amount on her from touching her husband's body. But the prosecution wasn't done yet. Next, the state claimed that Alicia moved some of the shell casings to the front porch to bolster her attempted robbery story. And the way they were found was the giveaway.
If you stand at the door, find a weapon, a .45, the bullet gonna eject quite a distance, some feet. It's not gonna just drop right there where you were standing. So that was really, a big thing.
But the defense told the jury that with all that foot traffic in and out of the house, any number of people could have moved the shell casings.
You've got the entire family from both sides just coming through this house. They're all over the place. Obviously, it contaminates the crime scene.
With that in mind, Alicia's attorneys attempted to convince the jury that it was impossible to derive exactly where in the house Brian was shot, based on the location of the shell casings. And they reminded the jury that the state's theory was just that, a theory. And that other than a tiny speck of gunshot residue, they had no eyewitnesses, no physical evidence, and no murder weapon. On January 9th, 2007, the case was turned over to the jury. Coming up, the jury reaches a verdict in the Alicia Hughes murder trial. But will it stick?
That was a big issue. The composition of the jury, whether or not they were fair cross-section.
On January 9th, 2007, after deliberating for about 2 hours, the jury in the Alicia Hughes murder trial announced they had reached a verdict. They found Alicia Hughes guilty of first-degree murder.
I remember standing for the verdict, and they said, guilty. And it was, almost like my ears were playing tricks on me.
The following morning, Judge Winston Kidd sentenced Alicia to life in prison.
When they said life, I thought I would die. I had no more feelings. It just seemed like the system was working against us.
But it wasn't over yet. On February 22nd, a little over a month after the guilty verdict, Alicia's attorneys petitioned the judge to throw out the conviction, based on their claim that the jury had been unfairly selected along the lines of race and gender. In a surprise move, Judge Kidd agreed.
The judge reversed himself, which, according to the research that we've done, has never been done in the state of Mississippi.
That was the one thing that puzzled everybody, from the legal experts to the people that were just watching the trial. Everybody asked, how can he do that?
After serving 5 weeks in prison, Alicia was released on a $150,000 bond. 9 months later, on November 5th, 2007, opening arguments in the state of Mississippi versus Alicia Hughes Part 2 got underway. This time around, the jury looked more like one comprised of Alicia's peers.
It was made up mostly African-American women.
And it wasn't just the makeup of the jury that was different. Alicia's defense attorney, John Coletti, had brought in some high-powered help, Dennis Sweet. Right from the beginning, Sweet came out swinging.
This is what you call a circumstantial evidence case. After we evaluate the evidence, I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask you to find Elisa Hughes not guilty of the murder of her husband.
With the defense now knowing our entire trial strategy, on the second trial, they geared their entire trial from opening statement on to disputing the validity of the evidence which was collected.
But there was more to the new trial than a new attorney and a new jury. After going back and interviewing the neighbors, Sweet found 2 witnesses who said they heard a car speeding away from the Hughes house right after the gunshots.
After you heard the shots, what did you hear anything else?
Shortly thereafter, I heard a car skid away.
I started knocking on doors, and I found 2 people that were there and heard the car pull away. But you did hear a car pull off from that area?
I certainly did.
Sweet also put a lot more pressure on the police to admit that the crime scene was compromised by all the people coming and going from the house on the night of the murder, particularly when he questioned the lead crime scene investigator.
Charles Taylor is this crime scene guy. And he's just a matter-of-fact guy. You know, he's there to tell the truth. Do you have the crime scene log for me?
No, sir.
Is there a crime scene log?
I don't know.
As I was questioning him, I'd ask him his questions. This was done wrong. Yeah, it was. You know, and that was done wrong. He didn't follow the rules. No, it didn't.
Dennis Sweet, in the second trial, very charismatic, really played to the jury, tried to be real flip in his comments, would make fun of a lot of the things that people were testifying about, and really just tried to endear himself to the jury.
Closing arguments were made on November 16, 2007, and once again, Elisa Hughes' fate was turned over to a jury.
Only way that this lady could be convicted of murder is that each and every one of you have to vote guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Please don't. Elisa Hughes did not do this.
I guess the unknown intruder ran in, got Brian's gun, said, stand there for just a minute, let me shoot you 6 times, once in the groin. Let me run back out and no motion detectors go off. What man's gonna shoot someone in the genitals? No man's gonna shoot another man in the genitals. But a woman will.
Within 2 hours, the new jury had reached their decision.
I will read the verdict as the jury has handed to me. Will the defendant please stand? We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
They read the verdict, and they were like, not guilty. And I was like, thank you, Jesus, thank you. And I think I screamed. And then I hugged each of my attorneys, and I was just so thankful for that verdict.
You had a school teacher convicted of killing her husband, overturned, new trial, and then set scot-free. It was a good soap opera, put it that way. It was All My Children has nothing on this case.
And the case continues to be controversial. To Alicia's friends and family, there was no doubt the jury made the right decision.
The DA asked that the jury be polled, all 12 of them. So that means, every one of them had to get up and say, we're not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. And they all said it with a smile, and it just made us feel so good. It was just a blessing.
But to the police and prosecutors who worked the case, Alicia's not guilty verdict was not a blessing. It was a travesty of justice that can never be undone.
She could scream to this camera, I killed Brian, and so what? He deserved it, and we could never try her again, ever.